Hi, Orange Girl here with another scrapbooking process video for you. I am working with a cut file from the Cut Shoppe, and I'm working with this file which is free and linked below. Alright, so in my Silhouette software I set this up so that it would cut all of these out. I made a few blank spots where I just deleted the whole flower, and then I also made 3 spots where I had it actually cut holes into it so that I could stitch rather than cutting all the way through. If you want to see how I do that, changing it to stitching, I have a video that I made that shows you how to do that, and I'm going to link that in the comments below if that's helpful. So I grabbed my Pick Me Up collection from Paige Evans, and I decided I was going to use these cute little 2x2 pads to go ahead and back my flowers. And to make them look even more like flowers, I decided that I would make the center different than the rest of the flower. So each of my flowers is going to be a different color or close, almost all of them different colors, and then the centers also. I'll let you know I do end up taking this one off and changing it, and I'll explain that here in a couple seconds. But so my thought is if I go ahead and I glue down that center piece, and then I can glue the 2x2, which just barely fits, to the back, then I have a flower. And it makes it look even more like a flower than just the cut file alone. Okay, so I changed to the Turn the Page collection. Not because I don't like the other collection, but because I just liked these papers better for this actual layout. And I used the 2x2 squares, and I'm just about done. And then I decided I'd grab this 6x6 pad and use this for my centers. And I'm just gonna do it like this. So my thought process here is that I'm going to use this 6x6 pad because it has more solid colors on it to do the center of my flowers that have busy 2x2s. And then the other thought then is that on the more less busy, I guess, 2x2 pieces that I have for my flower petals, I'll use a more busy center. And so right now I'm just going through and I'm cutting these out, and I'm not going to make you watch me cut all of these out, but or glue them down. I did fast forward, and then I also will cut some of it out so that you don't have to see that whole thing. The video is already a little too long anyway, but I apologize for that. So I went through the 6x6 pad, and as I was going through the 6x6 pad, I found that piece and then another couple different things that I use. So this piece right here has a saying on the bottom. It's a card that has some pretty trees on it, and I thought I could use that as a center of a couple of my flowers. And then at the bottom it says "Let the adventure begin" or something like that right there that I just cut off, and I am going to end up using that as part of my title later. So now I've got all of those backed except for all of them. They're all backed and ready to go and glued down. But in doing so, I found this awesome piece in the 6x6 pad, and I decided it needed to be fussy cut. So what I'm doing here is I was trying to show you there a few minutes ago that it has a bunch of gold in it, and so I went ahead and I cut out a whole bunch of those, and it has gold flecks in it. And it's just really cute. I love all of those flowers. So I did a bunch of the pink, the blue, and the yellow. And so now I'm just showing you that I'm going to go ahead and stitch with this red. And then just kind of showing you I'm just doing a basic back stitch. And then I'll move on to the others. Okay, so I've really kind of struggled with what I want to do for the stitching pieces color-wise because there's so much color going on. And what I ended up going with is, since I have all of these gold accented pieces, I decided that I wanted my center to be gold of each of these. And I don't have gold floss, but I do have gold thread. So I just have you know, regular gold thread that I use in my sewing machine. And I looped it so that it is 4 strands thick, if that makes sense. And so I have it in my needle, and we'll just see if this works. And I tied it at the bottom, okay? So the 4 strands at the bottom are tied together. They're just looped at the top because I didn't want to cut them. I thought that it might be easier to manage. Oopsie, because every time I touch it, I mess it up. Yikes. Okay, so this may or may not work, but I wanted something a little bit thicker than just 1 strand, and so I'm trying 4. The other problem that I ran into, I don't know if you can see this or not, but I ran out of red thread right there. Yep, last piece. Don't have the number on it, so I don't know how to go buy some new stuff and still get the right color. So I'm going to put probably some sort of embellishment or something over that part. So there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do some stitching in here very carefully as to try not to mess up the 4 strands together. And so see how that's a little bit thicker than 1 strand would be. So I'm hoping that this will work. So I'll be back. Okay, so my stitching is done and I've backed all my file. I'm ready to add my picture and my embellishments. I'm going to start by adding my photo, putting some tissue paper behind it, and then I'm going to pop up my photo a little bit. So when I pop up photos, I use just a really cheap craft foam that I get at Michael's. It has adhesive on one side, and then I use my tacky glue to glue it down to my page. This is a photo of a flowering tree that I see every day as I'm leaving work. It's right outside my school building that I teach in, and I will tell you, I was so ready for spring this year, and it was so late, and it just has taken a really long time for things to bloom and for the grass to get green, but we are there, and we have spring has sprung, and that is fantastic. So I am thankful for that. And I took a picture of it, and that's really what this layout is about how ready I am for spring. In the end, and maybe in the close-ups, you'll be able to see the journaling. I think I do it actually off camera, but sorry about that. I hit the camera with the paper, the paper towels. So what I'm doing is I'm adding some Shimmerz products behind my well, it's behind where all of the flowers are going to go. So I'm just adding some splatters. I'm not going to do a huge amount of mixed media here. My idea is I want the cut file, the flowers to shine along with the photo. So I'm just adding a little bit, and then I'm actually wiping it off with a paper towel. I'll add some more later, and I come back. That's usually how it works for me when I'm going back and forth with mixed media, is I add some, let it dry, come back, add a little more, and so on. So my title is going to be Spring, and I'm using these great gold letters that I have in my stash, and I can't even tell you what collection they're with, but I love them. And it's a nice script, perfect for the word spring, and it fits perfectly underneath my photo. I went with gold because of the gold elements throughout the layout. All of those pretty flowers that I cut out, with the exception of a couple of them that I haven't cut out yet, but that I do end up cutting out and adding to the layout later. All of them have gold in them, and then also my subtitle, which says something, I think it says, Let the Adventures Begin. That's the subtitle there that I'm putting underneath. That was cut off a card. You saw me do that earlier when I was backing the photos, or backing the spots. it has a gold writing on it as well, so it just fits perfectly, and the color is perfect. So anyway, so now I am adding a little bit of blue watercolor from Shimmerz also. I believe it's a Creameez product, and I will link all of that. All of my products I try to link in the comment section below the video on YouTube, and so I'll link all of that. So I feel like I've pretty much got most of the mixed media part taken care of. I do come back and add some more later, but at this point I decide I'm going to go ahead and put my flowers down. I'm covering up that spot over there where I didn't have enough red to finish stitching first, and then I actually do put a few flowers by each of the stitched flowers, and then the rest go in a diagonal just like I did with my splatters. And so now pretty much everything is glued down, all of those flowers one by one, and I'm adding a little bit of gold thread and a flare button that says Hello Adventure, I think. And I'm going to add a few more splatters of paint. That flare is from a Flair for Buttons, of course, and I will link that below as well. But I thought it matched just perfectly. I didn't plan on putting any flare on this, but I saw it sitting there on my desk as I was actually prepping for another layout that's coming soon, and I was looking for some flare for that layout, and I found this, and I was like, oh, I like it. And this one wasn't done yet, so I added it. So adding some more splatters, and then I realized I need a few more flowers, and there in the 6x6 paper pad there are some papers that there are 2 of each paper, and then some of the papers there's just a single, and this one is just a single. So I'm looking at my scraps and I'm trying to find a few more little flowers that I could cut out that I hadn't cut out. And then there are also some red flowers, you can see them there, that do not have gold on them. So I cut those out as well and just sprinkled them throughout the rest of the flowers so it didn't look like they were all in one spot. And then the last thing I do to try to solve the problem a little bit is you're going to see me get out the 6x6 pad and look through it one more time to make sure that it does indeed not have another piece of that paper, and it doesn't. But I noticed that the cover has a few of the flowers on it with the gold in it, because you know how on the 6x6 cover of the pad, right there, it has a little peek of each of the papers, and so I ended up using that, and so that's what you're seeing me cut out here. I just quick cut that off, and now I'm going to add a few more, and then I am pretty much done except for my journaling, which I do off camera. And then I decided I wanted to add a few enamel dots to sprinkle in throughout the flowers, and just add a few little bits of color, few little more pops of color. So when you see me get out my enamel dots, I'm pretty much finished, I think. So I've cut all of those, and last but not least, I'm going to glue down my picture, of course, and then add the enamel dots at the end. I had a really good time creating this one. It was fun picking out the papers for the flowers and trying to make them, the colors go across the page, and use a lot of different kinds of pattern papers. I love using the 6x6 pads, or in this case the 2x2 pads, for things like this, because you get just a little pop of color, and the designs are a little bit smaller, shrunk down from the 12x12 page, and it just works really nicely. I had a really good time working with this free cut file. I'll link that below. It's from the Cut Shoppe, of course, and it's a great file. So I'll also link the video of how I turn it into stitching instead of fully cutting it out. And here are all those close-ups. Here's the stitching and some of those flowers that I fussy cut. Thanks a lot for stopping by, and I will see you in my next video.